Dolphins fans, oh boy, we're in some trouble. We trail Steelers talk by 158 new subscribers in the month of June. Luckily, we are beating the Chiefs, Kansas City, but I want to take down Pittsburgh and reign supreme in the AFC here at Chat Sports. So hit that sub button, stay locked in with everything surrounding the Miami Dolphins, and help us take down Steelers talk in our June sub battle. Many topics to get to on today's episode of Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. I am Nic Rohloff. The first one, though, Devon Achane, the second-year running back who was selected in the third round a year ago in the 23 NFL Draft out of Texas A&M. Is he going to have a monster breakout season in year two for the Dolphins under Mike McDaniel? Well, first, let's look at what he did as a rookie, because he was absolutely terrific through 11 games. He had 103 carries, 800 rushing yards, coming out to just about 7.8 yards per carry, which is a ridiculous number, to pair alongside 27 receptions, 197 yards on the air, and then 11 total touchdowns, featuring 3 through the back and then 8 on the ground. And to me, I think Achane does have a solid possibility of breaking out, because due to Raheem Mostert, the 32-year-old veteran who was fantastic last year for Miami as well, and he had 18 rushing touchdowns himself, due to him being up there in age, the Dolphins have kind of preserved him and not really used him as much through OTAs and minicamp, which is to be expected for a 32-year-old running back. But what has this done? Well, it's allowed Achane to really get the bulk of the work as the RB1, as the workhorse back in 7-on-7s, 11-on-11s, and allowed him to get what it feels like to at least be the number one running back on an offense that he is going to be heavily featured in. And I think the thing that we're going to see from Achane the most in year two is his threat out of the backfield as a receiver. We know that he can catch it and make big plays happen out of thin air, and we know he can get it on the perimeter on tosses and outside zones and hit the gap and use that under 4.4 speed to run 80 yards for a touchdown, which he did last year a couple times. But to me, I think he is going to see a lot of work in the screen games, in the slot even as a wide receiver. Like, it's not always going to be Hill, Waddle, and OBJ as the three wide receivers on the perimeter and Tua in the backfield in the shotgun. Like, I think there's some solid formations we're going to see where maybe Tua's in the backfield by himself and we've got 4 wide receivers out there and there's no tight ends and it's 3 wide receivers and a running back, whether it be Mostert and Achane, because you get that speed running fade route on a linebacker or a drag route or a slant. Like, those mismatches can really cause havoc on opposing defenses, and that's where I think we're going to see the biggest growth from Achane in year two. Also, I do want to make note that Jalen Wright, the rookie running back that the Dolphins traded a future third-round pick to get in the 4th round of the NFL draft just a couple months ago, he has been relatively quiet in minicamp and OTAs. He had a couple bad days at OTAs with his conditioning, where the Florida sun might have just got the best of him, and he was allegedly throwing up on the sidelines. But the latest reports out of minicamp from the beat reporters, they didn't really mention anything about Jalen Wright. So I think the rookie is not been fully up to speed in this Dolphins offense as of yet, which has allowed Achane to get the bulk of the work and is going to put him ahead of Wright and on par with Raheem Mostert when we enter training camp in late July, which will only allow Achane to have a larger role in this offense. So what do I think a season could look like for Achane? And you might look at these raw numbers, and if you remember what they were off the top from a year ago, you might think that these are down or the same. I don't really think that's the case, though, because last year's 104 carries and 800 rushing yards is just something that cannot be continued. Those numbers are too, I don't even know how I want to phrase this, but they're just not going to happen. 7.8 yards per carry won't happen again. So I think if you average this out and had 5.1 yards per carry, which would still be terrific for Achane, he gets 36 more carries, still has over 700 rushing yards because he still is in a committee. I think 11 total touchdowns is still going to be very reasonable for Achane to get, but I do expect a bulk in the receiving game, 12 more receptions than a year ago, 27 to 39, and about 130, 140 more receiving yards out of the backfield. This is still a crowded room with Wright. He's obviously going to have a role in Mostert, but I think more efficient and more work in the receiving game for Achane is on the way. And projections for this upcoming season is a bit ridiculous, but I thought it was a fun exercise to see what I could expect for him. And this is just under 1,100 total yards for Achane in year 2, which would still be about 100 more from last season. So let me know, over under 1,100 total yards for Achane in his second season. I technically have it at the under, just about 40 or 30 yards less than the total I gave you, but you let me know your thoughts down below, over, or you for under. All right, let's talk about signing a defensive lineman and if Chris Grier could make that happen in free agency in between now and training camp picking up in 5 to 6 weeks. Well, I think there's a solid chance that Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, and Cameron Good, who are all nursing knee injuries or Achilles injuries that are usually a 9 to 12-month recovery in totality, could begin training camp on the PUP list, which isn't the biggest deal in the world. It doesn't mean they won't be ready for week 1 of the NFL season, but it does put it at least in a little bit of doubt. So could Chris Grier in this front office sign someone to provide more insurance and depth for training camp and maybe for week 1 or week 2 of the season? Well, there's still some solid free agents available on the defensive line. They can go in different directions too if they wanted to. They can go for a traditional edge rusher to make sure there's insurance for Phillips and Chubb, or if they had concerns about stopping the run on the interior defensive line. There's a couple guys out there like Yannick Ngakoue, Emmanuel Ogbah, Carl Lawson. Those 3 are your prototypical edge guys, while Calais Cambell and Lawrence Guy can get after the pass or the quarterback a little bit, but are also much better at stopping the run. We've talked about Calais Cambell in the past, and he had a terrific season at age 37 for the Falcons, and everything seems like he still wants to continue his career, and he probably wants to be in South Florida, considering he's played for Southern teams most of his career. He's played for Arizona, Baltimore, Jacksonville, and then Atlanta. He had a good season a year ago, and I think he would try to be that number 2 guy in the interior with Zach Sealer, but also can play out on the edge a little bit as well. He would provide much needed versatility and run stuffing ability for this defensive line of Miami, who lost Christian Wilkins in free agency. Or they can go the more traditional edge route with Yannick Ngakoue, who's one of the most accomplished pass rushers in the NFL. You look at his last 4 years, he had 8 or more sacks in every single year of his career after being drafted in the first round out of Jacksonville prior to this last season with Chicago. He had a little bit of a down year, only 4 sacks. He was a disappointment after signing a 1-year deal in Chicago, but he was as consistent as it came in the NFL prior to that season and could be a solid 4th or 5th edge rusher if you're skeptical of Jalen Phillips and Chubb being ready for the first couple weeks of the season and don't believe rookie Chop Robinson or Mo Kamara are going to be ready to contribute right away. And to me, the Dolphins have 2 choices, and maybe they don't even think they need to add more to the defensive line. Feels like they might have to, but maybe Chris Grier thinks differently. But if they do want to go to the defensive line, these are the 2 avenues they'll have to choose from. They can get an edge and a traditional pass rusher to get depth like Yannick Ngakoue, Carl Lawson, or re-sign Emmanuel Ogbah. Or if they want some more help on the interior and be able to stop the run a little bit better, if that's a concern with Tier, Tart, and Neville Gallimore not really surging in minicamp or OTAs to this point, they could go get a guy like Calais Cambell, who is just a workhorse and a dominant force in the interior of a defensive line. So you pick a DL for me. Which type of player or which player would you rather have? Would you rather go out and sign Calais Cambell type CC, or would you rather go get a depth piece on the edge like Yannick Ngakoue type those YNs? Make sure you are subscribed to the channel as well. As we mentioned, we're trying to win our June sub battle, but for you personally, we're going to have you covered with Dolphins videos every single day. And if they do sign someone in free agency, whether it be a defensive lineman, Justin Simmons, an offensive guard, we will have you covered. So lock us in here at Dolphins Today. All right, to close out today's show, OBJ, is he one of the best offseason moves that the Dolphins made, or just in general this entire offseason? Well, Chris Grier might have had a masterclass, because Bleacher Report ranked the top 25 moves, whether it be a trade or free agent signing this entire offseason, and they ranked it 23rd in terms of the Dolphins signing OBJ. And they mentioned the value, which is kind of the best part, right? It's just absolutely outrageous what you're paying OBJ this season. 1 year, $3 million deal. Like, yes, is Odell Beckham Jr. like a little bit washed in terms of what he did when he was with the Cleveland Browns and with the New York Giants? Absolutely. But he is still one of the best wide receiver threes out there that you can possibly have. Like, yes, 2019 is pretty far removed when he had 1,000 yards for Cleveland. We obviously know how dominant he was in New York, but he never really got his footing in Cleveland after that first 2019 season. Then he got traded to the Rams, where he was on track to be Super Bowl MVP before he tore his ACL, which caused him to miss the entire 22 season. Then returning in 23, like, you might snark at these numbers at 565, 3 touchdowns on 35 catches in Baltimore because he was the wide receiver too, alongside Zay Flowers. But that's not a offense that is really like helping wide receivers put up good numbers. Like, it's a lot of running attack, a lot of throws to the tight ends, whether it be Likely or Mark Andrews. So for OBJ to put up that number as the third target, arguably in the behind Mark Andrews, and behind Zay Flowers, like, I thought that is impressive. And to me, I think he's going to have a great season in Miami, working behind Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And I've mentioned this in the past, but I think this is the best wide receiver trio in the NFL. I don't really think it's close. Like, the only team that could have a competitive, like, debate with me about this is maybe Chicago with Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, and DJ Moore. But here's my thing. At this point in their careers, Tyreek Hill is better than DJ Moore. Jalen Waddle is better than Keenan Allen. And I would say Odell Beckham Jr., even though he's a veteran and on the plus side of 30, like, he's more proven than Rome Odunze is. Like, this is the best wide receiver trio in the entire NFL. And Tua Tagovailoa is going to have one heck of a fun time throwing the football this year in this offense when you can spread it around to these guys. And it also just provides you more depth in case of one guy getting injured. You can be confident with OBJ stepping in to be the wide receiver 2 to Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle on a spot start in a week basis during the season. That will do it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, breaking down the latest news and rumors. If you want more coverage on the Miami Dolphins, my Twitter is the best way to find it. At Nic_Rohloff is the handle, so go give me a follow. I'll see you with a video tomorrow. Go Fins.